Hey everyone. Okay, here it is. Here's my video. Please go through all the sections that are relevant to you, and you can watch the whole video if you want to. There is also a warm-up exercise that I talk about in this whole video at the start of it. So, but it's important that you don't speed through it. There's a lot of places where I give information, technical information, and it doesn't always come up at the front. I would ask you to just allow yourself to kind of sit through the whole video, and then please send me whatever your questions may be or anything, and I shall, if I have to get on Zoom and work with you, I will do that, but I will take care of it accordingly. So let's go with this. Okay, so as we start up the new term, we have got warm-up sheets in place. For the junior kids, it is this one, and this is the first of 3 that you'll get during the course of the term. But you would start with this one. Any student in Getting Ready 1, Ready 2, Basic 1, Basic 2. What you want to be able to do is work with colored pencils, and what was told to me by some of the teachers that I talked to was that the blending process is not clear to the students still. So we want to work on those things as an exercise. And this is your junior sheet. The senior sheet would look like this. Now, it is not on photocopy paper. It's on drawing paper. So what I plan to do is I plan to print out enough for people to access. And what I will do for Bel Air is I will put it on the desktop in the back computer. If you need to make copies, you cannot put it on a photocopy paper. You would take drawing paper, cut it down to the size of a photocopy sheet, and then take a print so that your pencils can work on it, or all pastels in the case of the portrait. So what are you supposed to do? When you give your students one of these, tell them this is an exercise in coloring and how we can do good coloring and also do a little bit of shading. I do not want you to do every single one today. For today, I want you to pick, let's say the first one, Charizard. Let's go to him and let's work on how we can work on his face. So I'm going to expand right now so that you can see what I'm talking about right there. Give them a light and a dark. What that would mean is 2 colors, something that would correlate to this, and have them make sure that they trace their lines and they put in a nice layer of color, and that when they color, the things that are of significance here is that they do not leave white spots and that the coloring is this intense. It is not supposed to be this. This is incorrect and this would be correct. So do one portion of this face, because in a warm-up sheet, we don't spend more than 5 minutes on a warm-up exercise. Just that's it, 5 minutes. And so in the 5 minutes, you want to be able to do a portion of this. In that case, you may not even need other sheets. You're not supposed to color the entire Charizard. If a child is not doing the right work, then you want them to restart and do it again. Write their name on the top. This sheet is not to be tossed away at the end of the term. It goes into their portfolios. So you don't just let go of it. Now that I've done one color, I'm going to take a darker tone and add in a little bit of a shading. And this is the time when we can talk about shading as well. Now, what are you guys supposed to do? You would take a teacher size sheet of paper. You would have these drawn out for you per class. And then when the students are given this sheet, you would show them on the big sheet on the board what they need to do in the warm-up. Don't leave them to guess, because that never really gets us anywhere. So you want to take some time to really show them, demonstrate to them, just like anything else. So notice that with this darker color, I'm just giving it a little bit of depth around the eyes and under the lower chin and all. You're not, if they start asking you for colors for the eyes and all, that's not the point. And we're not working on those things. So you can tell them that no, we just want to do a section because we have to start our project. This is just to kind of get your hands going on blending. I don't want you to get exhausted. I just need you to do a really, really good job of what I'm giving you. So that is how you would work on the junior sheets. If it's basic 2 and you want them to really accelerate on this one, have them do the entire piece. But remember, time, 5 minutes. 5 minutes is warm-up time. You don't take more, 10 minutes even, because that will throw you in a lurch for time when you do your actual project. Now let's go to the human face. The teachers told me students don't know how to blend skin tones on the face. So you would take out your all pastels for this exercise. And this is to be done with every class. Again, you're not to do the whole face, a segment of it. For the eyes, you can maybe talk about doing like the main eye itself inside. So what that means is show them how to create an eye. So for example, I would start with my lighter tone, shift over to a slightly medium one, keep the pressure low. On this one, you would use your color pencils, yes. But on the face, you would not use color pencils, you would use all pastels. So how do you blend with color pencils? That's what you're teaching them here, this point. To blend into each other. Colors should not sit next to each other. They should look like they are very much a part of that entire face. This is how you would do the eye, for example. So that makes you an eye. But how about different portions? So most of the times when we do the head of a person, the areas next to the line of the hairline, that is your darkest tones for the most part. You can also refer to a source of light. So what that means is, here, if you're here, you can say, okay, my source of light is going to be in front and it's going to be from this side. Draw a sun to represent the light source. That means everything to this side of the face should be brighter versus the other side. So work on the forehead to start with. You'd start with your basic color tones. We're talking about a good blend, not a fast work. So just pick a section. If you do the eyes on a certain day, you're not to do the forehead. Forehead goes to day 2. So again, this sheet can run you for about 4 or 5 classes, and then we'll print you another one. Now, to the side of this, I would like to put a really dark kind of a shade to contour her hairline. And I do it on this side, however, I don't do it on the other side. Then I want to put in a medium tone right here that I want to, whenever you put tones, the best way to make them blend is to overlap a little bit with the color. Notice that I'm overlapping here. You can bring back your first tone and you can kind of help it all kind of gel together by way of just a blending process right here. And this will help you blend into a very smooth gradient for a skin tone that you would be able to work with. This is how you would blend into the skin tone. You could take a lighter tone over here just to show that the source of light is on the opposite side. And you could then bring back, remember, the tone that you consider neutral is the tone that you bring back in to work with again and again. Once the different shades are in place and you have made everything, you can get them to use their finger or not. It's up to you. But you want to smooth the pastels out will require some of the finger blending and smudging techniques. Go to your dark part as the very, very last place to go so that you can really control where you bring the darkness and everything. and then stop over there. So something like this. This is what I would say is going to be a good blending for the face, for the skin tone. You can opt to do a slightly larger area to the forehead. It's really whatever you feel is right. And I need you to have this on a larger sheet of paper so that you can work with your students and show them how to blend, how to pick up colors. So what does that mean? That means that these skin tone pastels needs to be with all the teachers in the senior classes whenever they run them. And in Bel Air, there are boxes in each room that have the skin tone, so you guys are fine. In Pearland, there are boxes like these in the back, so you would pick up as many students as you have and then work with it. And that would be the exercise. Remember, 5 minutes at the start of each class. Write their names on the top with a date. Also, make sure that you don't throw these away once these are done. You put them into the portfolios, because this will be a point of reference about what we did as a term-long exercises that we went into. So, 2 different age groups, 2 different examples. Right then. Getting ready 1. This is for 4-year-olds, and our project is tropical plants. It will be a painting project in neo colors with mixed media paper. So we are working on the tropical flowers, and this one is the one for getting ready 1. You're going to be using mixed media paper, and it is with neo colors for the younger kids, watercolors. For the older kids, as you get into tropical flowers, you're going to do gouache paint. Now, the thing to know about this particular flower is that it's called the maniho, and it comes from Brazil. It is, another name for this is actually cassava or tapioca. This is actually a plant that gives you fruit at the bottom in the roots, and it is used, and we do eat it. But there is a hydrocyanic acid in its body, which when they cultivate it, they get rid of it so that they can then send it to the market. So you have to be careful how you handle this particular flower. But this is our tropical flower, and here is our picture. So if you had to draw this flower, maybe a good idea might be to think about using your yellow for the center, and then or the white areas in this, and draw it for the students. Remember, the center is like almost like a little tripod kind of a design with a sort of a wavy thing around it, like so. It has a bulb that goes that stands up tall from the center of the flower, which is what I'm going to draw now. It's got a few sides, and it turns around. So it's anchored to the center. I'm going to give it a little bit of the green. Remember, these are neo colors, so when you apply water to this, it will start the painting process. So you only apply it where you need to. When you're drawing this for the kids in the class, try to use the orange for the center so that you can be working directly with colors, and they might find it easier. For the petals, you are going to create 5 petals. They don't have the same type of shape. If you look at the photograph, when you take it out of the file, you will see that each petal is just a little bit different in the way that it is drawn. It is not drawn in the exact same way. You would go ahead and give a center line in each of the petals, because that seems to be typical of each petal. And then you would end up giving more pigment to the outer side, not even the tip. Leave the tip very partial. Don't apply too much pigment. Don't let the kids apply too much pigment. Just enough. So you're doing all your color applications as you go. Now, if the kids say we want to draw with a pencil, please don't worry about it. Go ahead, draw with a pencil. That's perfectly okay. But keep in mind that that will mean more time for you to get the project done and rounded off. Now, this is done. You are going to attach its stem. So the stem kind of just goes out. If this is your center, it is just going out and it curves away. That's it, the stem done. But it has a little pod that shows up right here. And so the pod is going to be, you can put it here, you can put it here. So you can change it around. In the drawing, I have shown it as being to its side. But kids will draw the flower in just about any place that they feel like it. So tell them to find an empty space, and that might be better. So you start by making yourself the 5-star. Remember, the lines that are away from you will be shorter, and the ones closer to you will be longer. You're going to apply. This is what baby pod looks like. It's just like that. You would apply a little bit of your leaf to the bottom, and you would let the stem go down, not right away go to the side, and then you can curve it towards that main stem that's coming down from there. So this would be your process of doing the main big flower and a small one right next to it. And the next thing that we're going to do is just paint it out. But before you do, you also have to consider what color would you like for your background. You should put that down because once the water starts, you cannot then add color to it. So there is a bright part to the stem. I would like to darken the bottom of it. Just add a little extra pigment. That's all you have to do. You don't really have to try to create an extra color or something. There will be enough color here to give a soft, subtle tone. You don't need to let them put more color than just the outline of the whole thing. Now, as in regards to the background, try to find yourself a nice earthy green, something different from your stem. So see if they can be a mix of maybe green and blue, if you like. That would be a good combination. You want to come in close to your flower so that you can really get a nice background done. This project is quite easy and straightforward. There's not much to it. So if that be the case, we would like you to also create your backgrounds. You cannot not do those. If the flower feels like it's too simple and it is going to not take too much time, the kids will be done sooner, create 2 or 3 flowers and maybe 2 pods. This is your basic exercise right here that I'm showing you right now, that you are going to be teaching the Getting Ready 1 students in the first week of the coming term. Now I've put the green and I'm going to apply the blue into it so that I can get a little bit of the sky color effect. Remember, this is a magnified version of this flower, so the background tends to become pixelated if you were to look at it into a photograph or something. Get yourself your brush. Remember, set every student up with minimal paint or brush, water and everything. Do not give them too much. Start with the reds, stroking over it. Remember to define your boundaries when you are stroking this. This is the time when you would do all of that. Remember to leave white areas because this flower is all about the pink and the white. So you do not need to kind of carry forward anything into the white sections. You don't want to turn it into a baby pink. Not at all. You just want to create a really soft kind of a nice feel. Leave the white untouched. that is typical of this particular flower, the cassava flower. I'm sorry, not very good with the terminologies that are technical, so I'm not going to be using them in speaking to all of you, but this is as far as I will go. And you'll see as you build up this red all around that center point, it's going to start showing off how bright it is. I know that when you draw it, it feels like it can confuse the child. So you want to counteract that with a choice of colors. If you feel it's really confusing them, they're not able to define which one was what, then you as a teacher needs to think about this ahead of time and have a game plan ready. Now, because this line of this area that supports the center stamen is supposed to be green, and the line red is just a line, nothing more than that. I'm not going to try and poke at it, none of that. I'm going to leave it as it is. The little baby flower is very, very soft in its rendering, so that means I just want a very light hue. The outline that I gave it was enough. You do not have to add more, because the more, this is really concentrated color. Neo Colors is the best that you can get in the market currently. And what that means is that a little bit goes a very, very long way. Do not need to poke at it. You do not need to try to fix it to make it go give you more. So this is your basic flower that you've got here. You can gently swoop over the red in the center, but don't spread it too much. And if you feel like it can't manage it, skip it. Again, now go to the first petal that you have dried, and in a slight circular motion, help it to kind of bring out the colors. Remember, mixed media paper, and green can mix with the blue. It's perfectly okay. You don't have to worry about that. There's your beautiful soft color to the background. Remind your students, wash the brush with every change of area, because you never know what you will end up having to paint, and you want it to look really, 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 really good. So please remember, results matter to us, because that's what a parent would see. So it is important to make sure that child understands technique and they take their time to work on this thing. So how many flowers? I have shown you just one flower. However, if you find that they got done too fast, you want the drawing to take about 20 to 25 minutes in the class duration time, and no more than that. Take your time. You have to darken the background for this one. You do not, this is not optional that I'm saying you can choose. I would rather you made less flowers, but you have to paint your background down with your student. The reason for that is that the flower itself is so light in its color intensity that it needs a darker background behind it to make sure that it really, 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 really pops. And that's what we want to work on. Here we go. And that is your exercise for Getting Ready 1 first week. So please give it a run yourself. Don't just go into the class thinking it's super easy, I can do this. Think about what would happen if the students burned through this. And if they were ready to go to the next one, what would you do? So have some thoughts on that. Right, thanks for joining me. Take a look. So this is what the project comes out like, nice and dry. But if you look at the main picture, when the student comes back the following week, there's no harm adding some shadows and values to this thing. So what that means is, take a black color pencil and tell them minimal pressure. Minimal, as in zero, as if you were going to pet a cat. You know, if you pet a cat too hard, it's going to scratch you. So if you wanted to really, really get a good result, you don't want to go very jet black at all. and indent into the pollen in the middle. So you don't want a round. You can use your black to create a little bit of indentation into it so that you start giving it, I think, a little bit more interest is the word that I would use. So you want to stay close to the core and you really want to give it more depth here. Yes, you can add a little bit extra black here, but for the most part, you want to stay subtle as you move around this flower. So this is how you would kind of give it depth the next time the students come in, and you can also add in a little bit of a shadowing here. So it starts to feel like it's cupping. Do this, and then you can add a little bit more so a little bit more darkness over there, and then you can add in a line here, darker to the very crease and lighter as you move away from the crease. So you can also add the crease in a red, and you can use a red color pencil, but you can show like there's like a little bit of a fold in, and you do that by being dark to the crease, lighter as you move away from it. And that's about it. These are the few details and dimension I would ask you to add, and that should wrap up this project. Getting ready to, our topic is perspective. We're using superheroes. It is going to be in markers and drawing. So this project is for getting ready to, and it is a project on perspective. In the project file, you are going to find a paper that describes perspective. So I need you to kind of have a look at that so you can use it in conversation with the students. There will also be a grid, something like this, that is there so that you can make copies of this so that the students can use the grid to create the structure of the down buildings surrounding a hero. What that means is I use this grid to make this, and the original picture is like this. So the drawing that you are going to have in your packet that you have to draw with your students is this one, of the young boy falling through the buildings and everything. So having said that, for this project you're going to need drawing paper and you're going to need a tracing paper. And you're going to use both of them. So the first thing that you're going to do is create the buildings that would be there. The boy is falling down, so he is behind him. We can see, what can we see behind the superhero is the question. So we can see the tops of the buildings. So what you would do is you would place your paper on here, and you would just take a pencil and you would create the buildings. So you can give your students a ruler to work this one out with, this, and you can say one building was taller, it came down to here. Then you can say the second building was shorter and it came to about here. So, and this is Times Square in New York City, where we know that he would be living. So here we're going to put a building to the side, so he's surrounded by buildings as he falls. This one, and you're going to have so I'm using the center vanishing point to help me create a feeling of downtown. and then here. So what I end up getting is a feeling of the buildings all behind the superhero. Now, leave this paper out and you're going to draw the superhero himself. So remember, this is your picture. He's falling through the grid. So let's draw this one. First step, you can create his head. Make sure you talk to the kids about drawing light so that they can erase off whatever they don't want. A neck, shoulders, and from the shoulders we have the arms starting up, but we also have the chest. So a little bit of a bulk right there. Next, expand on the hips, and you would create the line for his, what we call the underwear line. So you would do that. You can put in the inside of his thighs like this, and then start creating the outside of his leg. So we have the legs now. Hands come to about this position right here, so they are in a triangular shape. You can put this in. You can put the first part of his hand here. And then you have the second part of his hand. Bicep muscle and tricep muscles. So you can build them in. Again, you can draw your hand in first so you know exactly where you're headed. Like this. So if you draw it in this manner, you will get a good placement of the muscle structure also, and you can create an inner curve right here instead of a sharp angle, and you can fix this up. So now this is your body. You can remember, when you make his eyes, try to divide the area of the face. So you have positioning 1, 2, and you're going to go up, up. You're going to go down, 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 down. And this is this, and this is this. So you have the eyes done. Then from the shoulder, you have shoulder pads. Remember, he was a younger kind of a hero. So you have lines coming in on top. And you have a circle. His logo was a little bit different from the usual Spidey that we know. Eight legs. That would be his basic structure right there. Now that you've drawn this thing out, you have to impose the buildings. This was your buildings. You would flip this down so that the carbon is facing down on the paper around the young boy, and you are going to firmly use your pencil and press down all the lines onto the paper below. Of course, you want to tape this down for your students as you are doing this, so that your students do not shift that paper at all. Remember, this is getting ready level 2. So you are dealing with 5-year-olds. We're not talking about a ton of windows in the building. But should your students say, well, we'd like to draw a building, the windows and all, then you can. There's no harm in it. It's about how much they are able to get done and what. Now you can darken up these lines. And you can firm this up. Now remember one thing, flare pens do bleed. If you were to put a marker over the lining of a flare pen, you're going to get a mess. So the flare pen should not be before the marker, it should be after, if you were using flare pens. If you're using a Sharpie, that would be better for you. We are not concerned about the background because to draw all of this together simultaneously will take a bit of doing. And because of that, I would say you don't have to worry about coloring the buildings at all. Leave those in black and white, but do trace them with a pen at the end of coloring Spidey. So you're going to color only the boy, and he is predominantly like a black with a red marker. So for his logo, so that's what you're going to work on. What that means is, and one of the things I like to do, if that helps anybody, is I like to erase down my lines, especially the ones that I plan to put into a color of some sort. So I'm going to erase it, but not totally. So my pressure is soft on my hand. This way, maybe I can avoid getting such too many dark lines. There's a red outline around his eyes, so I got that first. Keep it simple. Do not elaborate, and don't try to get them to add the spider's web on his suit, because that will become tough for your little kids. That's all the red that it gets on the suit. My second color is going to be a black. Okay, so this one's not going to work. So I'm just gonna go ahead and grab my Sharpie. Remember to trace your lines, because if you don't, it can get away from you pretty fast. Remember, when you color between the lines for the spider's symbol, get them a finer pen, please. Don't let them color with the same fat tip thing, because you're not going to get any clarity. And it's going to get away from the child as well, and you won't be able to do anything about it. It's always better to anticipate issues and then make sure that you get the right equipment in your room versus trying to fix an issue that you have now. Prevention is better than cure. So this is your main drawing. For the artwork, you do not need to worry about the sky or anything. Chances are you will not be left with any time to do any of that anyways. So you are not to encourage your students to rush forward so that they can possibly do more work with this, because then they will let it get messy. This is a geometrical kind of a design, and you want to talk about perspective. So he's falling through the buildings and he's trying to hold on to something, but I think he's kind of got zapped out, if I remember the movie correctly. So let's hope he lands on his feet, but then a spider always does. Or is it a cat that always does? Cannot. And that would be your project for a getting ready level 2 of the superheroes with perspective. And if you wanted to, you can color the sky in, but you have to make sure that you do it with a dry medium, not a wet one, because if you were to use regular markers on the black and there was a chance for it to kind of if it bleeds because you're using liquid in the sky, that will be a mess. So maybe, if nothing else, a little bit of a light blue would help. And just lightly, they can bring the colors through. Remind them, if you're doing the sky, it's okay, but no white spots at all. Make sure you take the time to check your work, everyone. So a good teacher is not one that has to do a lot of work. A good teacher is one that is prepared for their lessons and anticipates problems, will know how to handle them, and will be able to give the right equipment to the students to get the best results. So think about all of these things. I would ask you to run this project. I always do that. I always say, please run this project once yourself, so that you know exactly what you're in for, because there's a lot of differences that happen if you try to do things in your sketchbook and then assume that you got it. I have seen results in the classrooms that are not what we wanted. So I would tell you to please take care of these things, but that's your project. Thank you for watching. Basic drawing 1 is reflections. We are using Monet's art pieces to help us through the process. So everyone, this is basic drawing level 1. That means ages 5 and 6 years old. And we will be working on reflections. We will use the work of Claude Monet for this particular challenge. we are going to also discuss Claude Monet. And because it is a painting project, it's good to know a little bit about the background of the artist. He's a Frenchman, knew that he wanted to be an artist right from a very young age, and he worked towards it. Along his journey into art, he met his mentors. He met the first painting that got him recognition was the lady in the green dress, and the model that modeled that for him for that painting eventually was his first wife. And when she passed away, he was taken in by a very wealthy family, and the wife of that family took it on herself to support his children while he worked. So she would take care of them. Eventually, when her husband passed away, they both got married. Through all these different stages of his life, there was a stage when he was married to his first wife. And even though he'd received recognition, it was not easy as an artist, to where he tried to commit suicide by drowning himself in the river Seine. But in history, we all know he moved on to create a lot more amazing arts and everything. It was during the Indo-Persian War that he took refuge in London and studied the artists there for their landscapes and the way that they depicted the skies and things like that. So through the whole process, he has been constantly evolving. It wasn't until his old age, when he had cataract, he got 2 operations, and even after and during the healing process, he would work, but the colors that he saw with those eyes were very, very different. Some would say that he could see the ultraviolet lights, and that's what he went ahead and then painted. And some would even say that he went ahead and retouched some of his previous artworks because he felt those would be incorrect. And now that he could see the light the way that he could, he needed to show it in his artwork. So he redid some of his artworks and the skies and the color hues that you see in it, because he saw more of reds with his cataract eyes. But all that being said, let's get into the project. So in the back of these papers, I'm going to give you a little bit of a synopsis of the artist. I spent some time to read up on him. I'll give you the title of the picture. So in the case of this one, this is the House of Parliament. This picture was made in the year 1904. He saw the image of a lot of the main monuments of London when he was in the hospital at St. Thomas. And this is the view he saw through his window in his hospital room. So, and one of the biggest things about Monet was he felt that art had to be pleasing to the eye. So whatever he painted and whatever colors he used, he wanted that purpose to be adhered to the most, that it has to be pleasing to the eye. And that's what he sought. Now, let's get on with it. You will use drawing paper, not even mixed media or anything, drawing paper. And I'll explain why. Because when you use, this is a 80-pound sulfite. It absorbs the color really, really well, which is why we want to be able to just use it. Now, the first step in creating the House of Parliament is that you would divide your line, your paper, horizontally across. You can just, the easiest way, as Miss Elizabeth would say, to find the center is put your finger on either side and move your fingers together at the same speed, mark it off. This would be your middle for where you would place the line for the place where the building would stand. The drawings are very easy, so let's get with it. I would start from the side. I would create horizontals along with the verticals. So this is just an outline of a building that he saw, technically. And I'm just going one building at a time. And I can go ahead and make the horizontal line on a similar value and then add on the tower top. So in London's traditional architecture, you know that there was so many like tower tops and rooftops. So much history just in the main city itself. You don't even have to go outside of the city to catch all the history of London. So you have something like this. And the thing about the up and down lines is that it doesn't have to be a perfectly drawn kind of a thing. So you have the area drawn. Need you to take a tracing paper. Remember, you're going to look for a book such as this. Take one sheet per student and have them work on it. Have your students kind of put this over the work, and you want to tape it down for them. Because if you don't, there's a lot of like shifting and the picture comes out inaccurate. Now, here's the easiest thing to do. All of you all have got 6B pencils. So I want you to use a 6B, not a regular pencil. Want you to redraw just on top of this using a 6B. Because when you use a 6B, you're automatically putting on a whole lot more carbon. And also I'd like to place the sun. According to the picture, it's over the outermost tower right here. So you have a little bit of a sun right there. And when we say a little bit, you could put the whole circle on top. I'm working on a half sheet so that I can also use this in terms of our examples. So I want you to go ahead and capture this also. Now, once you've done all of this, you're going to take off your tape and you're going to flip it over. So you essentially only need half a sheet of paper. Match up those lines, especially the one on the outside, and tape down this time on the opposite side. And all you're going to do is now use your regular pencil and you're going to press down firmly over the lines. You do not need tracing paper for this thing. You just, transfer paper rather. You just need a good sheet of tracing paper. And this is how you would use it. And there's your image transferred as a reflection. Oh, sorry about this. I forgot to transfer my sun. I forgot to draw it the first time and I forgot to transfer it the second time. Wonderful. Right there. So you have all of this. Now you're going to paint with tempera paint. And you're going to focus on background first, followed by your foreground. Background being the sky. You can use the colors that you see here, but because we're going to do a reflection, you would not use the main picture totally. You would use it for the upper half. The lower half you would do as a perfect reflection. Otherwise, it's going to get very taxing on your students to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it like that. So remove your tracing paper now. You do not need it. You are going to get tempera paints. I've asked Miss Sanchez to check all the paints in the studio. I need you to only stick with the primary colors. So yellow, blue, and red. Do not go into secondary colors, please. I think being an art studio, we really do need to understand that we should be encouraging our students to learn how to mix these colors so that they have a very good idea. So here you go. Here are my yellow and red to start with. Don't pour more color than you need. Remember, flat brushes work better, especially if you're doing a landscape. Now, this will dry. Tempera paints are not permanent, so you would want to avoid your building. Having said that, I would just paint over it. Even if the students got it on, it's okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start applying my yellow going to apply it right over everything. I'm going to use as little as I can over the building. So although I might get it in on the edges, but I will do my best to keep it out of the whole thing. And what I'd like you to do also is get some white, because in his original piece, you can see quite a bit of white. The main thing to tell your students while they're working with paint is remember to clean that brush when you change color. So give them some water to clean brush off with. And you are going to create some lighter tones here. Just let it mix into the yellow right there. Do the one sky at a time and then go down to the reflection mode to do the next sky. Do not try to do them at the same exact time, because the students may not be able to handle it. Please always think from the perspective of your student, not yourself. What can you handle is not the point. It's about the child. So we have this, and I like to get a little bit of the white, soften up that yellow. I've got a really good hue. Now the red coming through over here from the side, because it shows a lot of red. I'm going to clean off my brush. And I'm going to grab some yellow to help me mix this red into the atmosphere. So remember, when you want to do a really good mix or something, you want to come back to your original color and you want to use it really, really well. And then I'm going to bring in my white so that I can mix this entire potluck of colors down really, really well. So there's a lot to be colored here, and you're going to predominantly use your time to create as much as you can in terms of your color schemes. So look at how soft it suddenly become with the application of white. I'm going to put some yellow back into my sky and some white again to help me reduce around the sun. I want the sun to be more dominant versus anything else. Just put a little bit of the red hues into the sky here or there and blend them out with a little tiny touch of the whites. So I'm just going back and forth on the sky. Please work in restricted areas again. Do not try to get your kids to do both the top and the bottom reflection at the same exact time. So once you do this, your sky for the top side is ready. Now repeat your steps on the bottom side. Please remember that I need you to make sure, check on their paint status all the time. Make sure that you are taking care of what they are mixing. It just helps the hand to go faster if you don't have to pause to do the areas, carefully counter the areas between the lines. And also the fact that if you start moving around the line, like 1, 2, 3, like that, your brush strokes are going to show up, and you know that that doesn't work. So I repeat the steps the way that I did them so that I can maybe get the exact same carbon copy in paint. Going downward, a little bit of my red. Remember, when I put the red, I ended up using a little bit of my yellow to help blend it out. And if your paints are alive, that means if they haven't totally sunk into the paper, you will be able to really push them around a lot more. Keep the direction the same. Very, very important. Cannot stress this enough. And don't let the kids also start moving their hands around just to contour the building. That would be so wrong. We would not be teaching them the right ways then if we encourage that. So do not encourage it, please. And here we go. Some white as the last layer just to kind of blend the whole thing up and soften the result of everything that we've got. I do not want to get into my sun too much, so I will not. So just the 3 colors, please. Do not introduce a different orange, a different whatever. I don't think it's needed. Take your white a little bit more to match up to what you see in the sky up above. There you go. So that's our landscape. You will find that your paper, if you have stretched that color and the paint out a lot all around, then you will find that it dries up really, really well. And it is to your advantage that you don't have to worry about it. Now, you can afford to leave that to settle while you take your blues and you work with the next side. Now, the Dick Blick tempera paints, we paid the money for the superior quality of tempera. Although a lot of you have come back and said, Miss Daisy, it looks like it is too watery, you have to shake that bottle. But the colors will, I promise you, be better than the Crayola paint. And that's what I want you to use. Use a flat brush for this one. Teach them how to use the edge of the flat brush to get that line going. Again, please focus on just one side of the building at a time. Try not to get them to do the entire reflection. Same exact time, that would not serve the purpose at all. It's almost like doing calligraphy. Remember, if the paint comes out scratchy looking on any corner of this painting while you're painting it, it should remind your student their brush is either lacking water or the paint is not enough. Either way, they need to fix it. So I've got this done. Now, it asks for white according to the colors of his original artwork for the Parliament House. He applies a lot of white around the building and the tower tops. So you can now change it over to a younger brush. My terminology, oh my goodness. You will find that as you start applying this white over the blue will start to kick in and will start to blend. And you will be able to go over your lines really effectively. After I apply it with the white, I use a moist brush to help me kind of blend. And this is again my flat brush that I'm using to help me blend this out. So I just want like a little bit of a feeling of the white. I don't really want a lot of it. Now I'm going back to my white brush, my flat brush, to help me with the rest of it. When you stroke over that body of the tempera paint, it will help you create the mixes. You won't have to do much else. So that's all I want to do for the top side. Now I'm going to repeat my strokes for the bottom. So please remember, it is really, really important that you get a very strong, crisp line coming back so that it shows the difference between the top side of the building and the bottom side. And you don't have to have the same amount of white reflected totally, so it doesn't need to be a perfect reflection. It needs to capture as much as it can, so the kids don't have to feel like, oh, I need to get this right, this, I don't have enough white here. It's like, remember, if it's reflecting off in the river that's showing it off, river has movement, and the water, the steady waters that run through it will kind of create a ripple effect, to put it mildly, and you won't get the same result. So you're not supposed to think of it as like, I need the same result. I don't want you to target windows in this, that will become too much for your student, but just do something to this effect. Now, if you look at the sun over here, it's got a lot of red around it. So it's now time to kind of take us back towards the sun. The best way to do it is to apply your yellow one more time. And this time, because it's just that small ball of circle, we can afford to just do it directly on there. And I'm going to just kind of put almost like a parentheses around this. Once I do that, clean my brush again. Every time I take a new color, I'm just quickly stirring the brush into the water. And I'm going to kind of create. You have to bring back some of the original color so that you can do this mixing and you can apply blends and all the rest of it. You cannot expect to just do it on account of a red that's sitting on top of a yellow. That would be a little unreal to kind of ask for that. And I let the orange mix. I let it go really, really bright at the start of it. I don't try to tamper with that process. But then as I've got this nicely situated, then I can take a little bit of my white and bring that in to kind of help mute. Like we muted the rest of the sky, so of course you have to kind of bring this feeling back into the glow around the sun. And you want to be able to feel like it all matches up and not that, oh, I suddenly have this amount of sky that feels it's surreal. And you don't need to feel that way. But this will help embrace the sun and give you like a proper sun that's reflecting in the water. But this is your project for basic 1. A lot more to the painting side. Remember, the way that you control students when it comes to the painting process that they don't speed up is that you call them to you, you demo. So although you will draw this on the board, you need to have a normal 9x12 sheet of paper with the same image pre-drawn so that when you do your paint demo, you're doing it on that, not the board. You call the students to round off around the table where you're going to demo and display the steps. Don't just kind of do it over the board, because the board you will trickle paint down. You'll be trying to, your brush, your hand moves differently. And the students may wonder if that's what they have to do. Try to think of everything from the perspective of a child. Do not do it just like, I think this would be okay. Think about what makes sense to them versus what doesn't. Because if you don't do that, you will end up feeling like, why aren't they getting it? Please bring your thought process from their perspective, and you'll feel a lot stronger about what they are able to capture and what they're not. Okay, wish you all the best, and that's your basic 1. Basic drawing 2, we are doing the human face through Paul Gauguin's artwork. So let's get with that. Basic drawing level 2 is the human face, and we are working on the artist Gauguin. Miss Elizabeth is going to tell me how to say that name. He is a French artist that ended up doing his last 10 years of his life in the Polynesian Islands, which is where he created all of this artwork. Now, human faces level 2, we're asking you to create 2 faces so that you can work on different angles. Now, again, as a teacher, as you work with your students and you get to know them, you need to see where their strength lies. And so if you think that they're going to find it hard to work on 2 faces, focus on one of the 2. So you don't have to do both, but this is a 1-class project. This is not a 2-class project. So that means you start and finish in 1 hour. And what you're going to do is, parent teachers, you're going to pick up this box, the Expressionist color set of all pastels, which has all the skin tone values in it. So this is your box to work in. Bel Air, you already have all your skin tones in a separate box. Use that. Now, we are going to start the drawing process. So how do we work on this? I'm going to show you very basic styles of the human face. But one thing you need to know is that in this project packet, I put extra face types so that you can have references on your board. Here's a little bio on Paul Gauguin. And he you'll find his date of birth and family and things like that, and what he aspired towards. There is a breakdown sheet on how to draw a proper human face. So this is an exercise on the human face, so there is no harm in you doing a dry warm-up if you wanted to, but at the same time you would make sure that you work on the actual project as well. Don't take up too much of your time to do the warm-up, because then you won't be able to have enough time to do the rest of it. if this is my paper right here, my first face, and this for paper management, I would say right here is where I'd like to have it. So I don't normally like to start with an oval. I like to make my eyes and I place them and then I create the circle around it. Having said that, I'm going to tell my students that my eyes are not horizontal because she's tilted on her head, so slightly diagonal. I want you to create 1, 2 lines for the top of her eyes, a little tear duct, and the bottom of her eye. So this is what you have over here, maybe an eyelid. And then on top, leave a little space here because she has her eyebrows. And her eyebrows are very interesting because they don't conform to the type that we tend to get our kids to draw. So don't just randomly draw eyebrows since you're working on one of his pieces. You want to take the time to make sure that you are delivering the project as it should be. So this is your eyes. Now take her right eyebrow and bring down the nose line in here. Stop and then just go ahead and give yourself the edge of it like this. It feels quite straightish. That's one of the reasons I'm drawing such a straight line, is in my perception of the face that I'm drawing doesn't feel like it's got as many curves as European or Asian face might do. Top line, her lips is shorter to the right side, slightly longer to the left side. I'm going to go ahead and make a center line, and I'm going to go ahead and make her bottom lip short to the right, slightly longer to the left. Now I'm bringing down the side of the face, which would be close by cheek, bring it around her face. I'm focused more on the face than the body, as you might notice. On her left side, you would get more area to bring the face contour back up like this. So you have the face right there. Now her main parting over here is at the top. Like this. Come down to the level of the eye. Over here, you're going to take away a little bit of this line and you're going to give her a random, like a flower that she chooses to have. In her hair. After this, from her cheek, I can see her shoulder, and going across to the other side, this is her other shoulder. So I've got her face down. How about the second lady? I don't have room for it. Hence, either I can skip her or I can put her as a partial. So because I'm trying to show you this thing as an example, I'm going to go ahead and start. So I'm going to go put her eyes here. Her eyes are sort of straightish, like this, going across. And what I see of her eyes is, so from there, her nose, I see a very direct angle here, so I'm going to use it right there. And over here also I'm seeing a very direct kind of a thing. For whatever reason, I noticed that a lot of his the people he draws, he makes them look to the side versus a direct frontal view. Interesting. So here I'm going to give her her nose right there. I can't see the other side, so I won't bother with it. And then her mouth. So it would have been under her nose right here. And I'm drawing a little bit over the first face so that I can plug it in. And then I can, of course, take it off. Leave it to this part. So I've got this much done. How about her hair? Where should I take it from? So I notice that it comes down to this point. And over here, I can see her ear. Like so. And her chin would come out from this point. Right there. And then we would have so you have two faces. The back face went bigger than the front face. That would be wrong, but I'm going to let it ride for a minute. Now, in this packet, I've got a lot of good skin tones. So when you look at the picture from his project, a good thing to do is give the kids a separate sheet of paper so that they can check the colors. You cannot just randomly start giving them whatever you feel like and not explain it. So a good way to do it is, what colors do we have in our box? Let's check it up so we know. So this is the first color tone that we have. Create yourself a swatch card. This one is sienna. Second one is olive brown. Next one is, and this is salmon pink. Next is Naples yellow. Next is umber. Then I have one more skin color, and this is oh, this is also salmon pink, so I don't see a different color. Orange lit. There's one more color. This one. It's called orange lich. I can't understand that last word. So these are my color tones, and if I put these next to it, I would use them as a guide on how to color. The brown paper itself being brown, so that helps you kind of eradicate a lot of the stuff that you wanted to use. I'm going to now put this picture above us so you can kind of look at what we plan to do. It is a process of mixing and blending, so I like the sienna, and also this is a different one. Oh, sorry about this one. This is burnt sienna. So I feel like I can use have your kids work alongside you. So have them pull out, give them all the color hues, have them make their own little swatch card, and then work with them piecemeal, one step at a time. So this is one. Then on to this side, I want to use my darker tone, not my lighter sienna brown. So I'm going to put in the dark, but I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it. And this way I can get I think I would mix into this a little bit of my burnt sienna, just to kind of help get the tones blended up. So here we go. So I'm going to now work this in. And you'll notice when you put the second color on top of the first, it does the blending by itself. You don't have to put your fingers or hands to it. But should you decide that you want to let the kids do a mixing process, so be it. Make sure that you give them a wet wipe so that they can clean off every time they incorporate something like this. Now as I come under the eye, I'm going to restore myself to the regular sienna brown, and I don't even have to clean my stick because it will take care of things a lot by itself. I'm not blending over there right now, I'm just laying the colors down as I see them. So over here I can see a area where I would like to use a little bit of brightness, so I'm not coloring on account of that part. So I want to salmon pink, I believe, right there, and I want to add the salmon pink into the highlights of her eyes and maybe a little bit over the rim of her eye here. Not everywhere, so I'm not just randomly putting things wherever just because it suits me as the best color, so put it everywhere. You want to talk about how the light affects the face and creates the contours. I'm going to add a tiny bit of the brown here against the right side of her nose because that should be darker, and then rub it over with a sienna brown so that it mixes up nicely. I'm going to let this go over her mouth also because it's a good idea to put one of the skin colors over the flesh of the mouth. It helps to mix a more very natural looking kind of a color. So I've got this. Now into this part I want to put, I'm turn the stick on the side and I'm just rubbing against the darkened areas over here instead of, because I want to not go aggressively into this area, and if I don't want to do that I have to find ways to control it. And now I'll go back in with my brown and help to blend this in. You have to do that so that you can get a nice smooth kind of a rendering. You don't want patchiness, you don't want to show the brown of the paper. Even if the skin tone is brown, you still have to find ways to kind of really smooth out the whole area. And now I'm going to use, I don't know, if I use this one, this is called the olive brown. I want to add this into my brown so as I can change the color tone just a little bit. Now I'm going to bring back sienna on top of her lips, and you'll see that it gives me a very different color tone for her lips because her lips are not red, pink, or anything of the sort. They're closer to her skin tone. So I would like to do it this way. I need to put in a highlight on her nose here. Notice that the highlight applies really, really well. Even despite having put so much of umber, it is really easy to kind of conform to things. Now I've got all of this done. Now I'm going to take my first color up top here and help to mix in a little bit. So I want to go from one to the other. All pastels are really good in that they blend really, really well. So if you go back and forth, they will move. The colors will be able to go from side to side. So this is this, and I'd like to maybe bring in a little bit of the skin tone here because it looks too yellow, my opinion. So I'm going to add in a little bit of my skin hue to help kind of subdue some of that yellow. And this look feels good to me. I'm going to work the rest in with the brown, not with any other color. Like this. Now that I've done this, how about her eyes? So her eyes, remember, tell your kids if your pastel stick looks really messy and just terrible to work with, you want to clean it with a piece of kitchen towel. So take a little kitchen towel and just twist, 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 twist. Okay. Don't go aggressively because the eyes have white, yes, but it is not an aggressive white. It is just white to a certain level. I'm going to add a little bit of the white to the flowers because she's got some yellow colored flowers, and the brown paper that we're using, you want to help kind of eradicate that process so that you can actually bring out her flowers. So I'm not, notice that I haven't worked on her body. I'm focused on the face. So the body can stay as a drawing, but it's important for you to get the colors and the hues of everything else correct. So now for the eyes, he doesn't really show too much of a bright spot in the eyes. If you look at the picture carefully, it's sort of like it's just there, but he doesn't really opt to give it too much of brightness in the eye, at least not in this one. Or the reprint of this has kind of made us feel that way, one or the other. Now her eyes doesn't have an eyeliner, so I'm not going to try to outline her eye with a black. I see it on her right eye more than I do on her left, so this is your choices that you can make. Mm-hmm. There's the black of her hair. Because we're going to work on all Polynesian people, supposedly, we would... That's why I opted for the brown paper base, because you, in any case, are going to go towards that. So it might help save you some time to kind of, as to how hard you have to work to create that undertone. Now this is sepia. This is not black. I have not applied black to her. I've applied sepia, and it works really well. So this is my version of that face, and I'm okay with this. I can opt to have a little bit of a line, because generally when you do a human face, the parting in the lips tends to be a little bit more darker than most other things. Now for the area on around her neck, unless you're ready to do all the color tones, I would tell you to focus only on her face. Another thing to explain to the kids, when you see all these little bubbles of like all pastel right there, you would take your finger and you would push them into the paper. Do not tap them out onto the floor, because you are going to step on it and it is going to be messy for your shoe and for the, of course, for the studio and the cleaning staff here. So all of this needs to kind of go in. You can use your last few minutes to kind of give yourself a rub down. Please remember that you want to make sure that you keep cleaning your finger between different color hues. So I've been working on the burnt sienna so far. I'm okay. But if I want to go there, I'll clean off as much of the pigment from my fingers and then kind of make sure that I take care of this one. Like so. And that's the project for basic drawing 2. These faces will keep coming to all different age groups during this term. We're going to work on this artist, and so this is the first of its kind, but that's what you have to work on. Remember, the body, you only go there if you are able to do completion within that one class. So focus is the face, it is not the other stuff. All right then. Fundamentals of Art or Drawing Fundamentals Level 1. We are working with just black and white on colored paper. Drawing Fundamentals Level 1 will work on creating a composition on a colored sheet of paper. You will use the color as being the first color in the process, and the rest of the colors will be done with your color pencils, black or white. You're not going to use a third color at all for the most part, so let's look at how you're going to do this one. For the Fundamentals 1, your picture is of sharks. And so if I bring this down so that you can keep looking at the picture on top, and then I can work down here, I think that would be nice. Let's fix this so that it's all aligned. Okay. First shark up top here. So I always like to go for the center line on the shark's body and stop here because that's where the tail is going to turn. The latter part here, this is your widest part of the body, so when you come back to the front, you are going to be very, very close to your body, and you're going to slightly go away from it, and then you're going to bring it downward, but you'll never touch this line. You leave it open. The bottom side, this was wide on the top, and diagonally opposite to it, this will be your widest part to the front. So what that means is you're going to come down nice and wide here. So you have this part here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away, colored pencils can be erased. They are not that hard to erase off. So if you get into a problem, you can get it off. 1. This is your fin on the top, your dorsal fin, and there is a secondary fin back here, right there, and then the tail turns. So then it kind of rounds off like this, in which case, you know, in sharks, in smaller fins, the tail is kind of like, it moves up and down. In sharks, it goes this way. So it's a vertical kind of a tail fin, which means we are going to have a fin such as this. Do it again for you guys. So it's hard to see what you get, but if you were to take the anatomy of a shark just like this, and then add the outside of the tail coming in to join, so this would maybe help you a little bit more to understand how to make that tail. So we're going to clean this up a little bit more. And of course, students can use a pencil if they prefer to. That's not a problem. The mouth of the shark starts from here and ends up over here. So straight, coming down this way. The mouth of the shark. The eye is anchored here. This is your eye, and you get your gills right over here for the shark. Now, Right after the gills is where you would get your side fins. Right there. So you can see this one. Now, how do you make the one across from it on the opposite side of the body, which you can't even see? So if this is your fin here, you would take an arc across, sort of a motion. And right there, this is where you would come out with your other sort of a fin right there. So that balances the two off. So this is your first shark, and then your second shark is right over here on the tip. So it's supposed to be closer to us. In proximity, I start with the front of the nose, which is a sort of a flat line. Turn this down and turn this one back. It comes this far before we sort of end up kind of creating almost like a oval shape for the most part. Now, you're going to keep this slim over here. As soon as you cross the corner, pick it up just a little bit. You want to kind of end up with a curve like this. So you do that. Now the side fins first, which are the ones we can see. These are the gills for this particular shark down here. Hence the fin starts at this point, goes out, goes across, and then this will turn as well. And if you can imagine its anatomy kind of making this shape, the tail would come off over here like this. So you would have the tail turning. Both the sharks are taking a turn here. Your mouth comes down, comes in, comes around. Mouth right there. Your eye is parked in here, right this point, and that makes your two sharks. Now, once you made this, your colors to use are your white and your black. So you want to keep a blue undertone on this. So that means look at the picture and see where is it very, very white. So what I would do is I would go in with putting a very strong coat of the white in those areas first, and which would be right about here, and then a little bit down the side next to the fin to the back. Done. Now I'm going to ease off the pressure on my pencil and leave it to where it can get some of the undertones of the shark's body here. So you want the blue. You don't want to get rid of it at all. It needs to stay so that you can, this is how you kind of show them how they can work with the color of the paper alongside adding just a white and a black as well. So by putting a little bit of the white over the blue, not a lot, you're muting the blue a little bit and you're creating a new color. So this is all you need to do here. This fin at a distance is got white, but not that much of it. It's kind of muted by the tones of the ocean. So we don't get into putting too much there at all. Now for the black. Essentially, the shark on the top has a lot of black, so I'm going to start by creating this curve around the tip of its nose. Now over here for the shark's fin, I'm going to put a lot more black to the back end and then just ease off on the pressure to allow the fin to capture some of the blues of the paper. So just like that. You can also create the teeth-like effect, but you want to sharpen the pencil. So I'm just gonna get a sharp pencil. Like this, so you make crisscrosses and give like a shark's mouth effect. And just add in shadows that you make out on the shark's body. Just add them in to kind of help define the shark. So you've got this done. Now let's go to the second shark right over here. Same story. What you're going to do is you go in by prominently putting in the whites that are the brightest for you. As a teacher, when you're working on this project, you are going to use this particular paper. It's cardstock, and you are going to join 4 sheets together with masking tape to make a paper that you can teach this project on your teaching board. So you're not to use a white piece of paper, and then you can work on the rest of it similarly. So So you've got the two basic sharks. My take on this project is it's a one class project, and so I feel like if I told you that you would do more on the background, it might get away from you. So I would not do anything to the background. Now, you having said that, you can add the brightness of the water on the top by just putting your white and just kind of having like just as if it's a surface area and the sharks are swimming closer up to the surface, but keep it really nice and soft. So now you've altered the base color of the paper. This medium part can stay the way that it is. You can start darkening the bottom with the black, but these are options. You don't have to. I think this in itself will be enough work, but you need to take your students through the shading piecemeal. You need to show them what to apply first, second, third. If you tell them to pick shadows by themselves, they won't be able to do it. So you need to demonstrate this whole thing. So that's our project for Fundamentals 1. Drawing Fundamentals 2 or Fundamentals of Art 2, we are doing a still life, and it is very different from what we normally do, so look at it. For our Fundamentals Level 2, we're doing a still life. For this entire term of still life, it is still teacher's choice, but you are to do a fruit. So if you as a teacher know you're coming into a still life project, I want you to get the fruit that you think will work. I will not be going to the market to get it for you. So it's springtime. There's a lot of variety in the market. You could pick from anything from pears to grapes to apples, bananas, whatever you want. But the subject is fruit. However, here's the twist on it. So let's look at the project. Why don't you watch and then we will tell you what you want to do. So I'm going to draw a picture of some pomegranate. Simple enough. Circles. Second circle. But to the front, I want to put like a wedge of, like a little break of it that has a little bit of the fruit in it. So I'm going to take away this line right here and put an arc. The simplest way to describe this is to make the arc for a tiny break of fruit. Here's the double line for the skin, and the inner side of it, and now you have there, a little break of the fruit over here. Of course, pomegranate has got the mouth, so kind of give yourself a top. And another round. So what you would do is you would take away everything in between this before you start drawing that little, a very irregular kind of a line. So you have that for the top of it, and over here I can put it right there. Again, I would take off any kind of a line in between. Right there. So you have the tops of the pomegranate, the basic round shaped body, and everything. However, I want to give a back to this thing, so I'm going to also be working on the background color, and I want you to just break it into a few sections and boxes right here. So you're going to make 1, 2, 3, 4 sections, and you are essentially going to be painting these. The background is painted, the foreground is graphite, but minimalistic, versus us making the kids go into a whole bunch of detailed graphite or whatnot. Source of light, again, is very, very important. My light source is up here, and so this part is going to be darker. For the background, you are going to paint this in tempera paint. So what that means is I take my tempera and I'm going to mix myself some yellows. So I'm going to say that this side is going to be like a nice yellow color. I don't want you to use tape. When you start using tape, it sort of makes the kids feel like they can't get by without the tape, and this is a very simplistic kind of a project. So although some of you might rush to kind of do that, don't forget the glue on the back of the tape will affect the way that the graphite works on the paper. So you want to be really, really careful about this thing. You don't just want to assume that it will be totally like it is. Anything, when you touch the surface of a paper, oils from your hands are transferred to the paper surface. It absorbs them. In a similar way, when you tape down a certain sect of it to block, consider the glue, the adhesive that is sort of lingering on that surface. So this is this one. Again, please use your primary colors with a touch of white, maybe black, and use everything from there. That's your first color. My second color is going to be orange. So I darken the hue. Remember, take a tiny bit of water, not too much, and it will help you to move that paint. It's just a thin layer of paint that is providing you with the background color, nothing more than that. And just give them a flat brush. With the flat brush, if you want, do a mock exercise to help them understand how to navigate an edge and to make sure that it feels sharp. There's your orange. To the bottom, I would like to maybe do a little bit of a pink and purple. Okay, so here we go. I have my tempera paints. Mix myself a tiny little pink here. And spread that paint out. Make sure you spread it. That way it will dry way faster versus not. And I run my brush over it one more time just to smooth that edge up, because I really do want it to dry really, really fast. Going to take a little bit of red into my blue, convert this into like a purple, and apply that down here. So that's your 4 colors. Those are done. Now, we're going to move into working with our graphites next. And if you have spread the paint out, look, this is already dry. Dry. This part and this part will be ready in just a bit. Think about a class situation where every student works at a slightly different pace. Hence, you have kids that gives everyone a little bit of a pause in the process of doing an art project. And that is really, really good. So you want to use that. Now, here we go. So for the I'm just following the basic source of light principles here. The key to one of the main keys, in my opinion, is the fact that when you get close to your second object in any kind of a artwork, that the lines remain sharp and they're clean, there's clarity of what you're trying to achieve. So that is really, really important. Do not underestimate that part. So make sure that the students understand the respect for different areas. I'm reducing the pressure on my hand because I cannot have this be like really, really bright, but I want it to be sort of softer. And notice that I'm not blending with a kitchen paper. I'm just setting the tone here. So something like this. Now, your choices are also this, that we have charcoal pencils. You can opt to do this in charcoal, but remember to check that it is not a hard pencil, it's a soft. Check on the back over here that you can see this. Why? Because graphite tends to take the light and reflect off as shiny. Charcoal will not do that, so you'll get a solid black and white. Another thing you can use is a black color pencil because that doesn't hurt either. Now come to this little wedge here. So the best thing to do is the areas between your little seeds of pomegranate needs to get dark. So it's sort of like the grape situation. When you do a bunch of grapes, you have to show the darkness between each and every little nugget or little tiny grape seed or whatever. So these are things that make or break a really good charcoal project or a graphite project. Now remember, this is not the way that you'll be doing it with the younger kids. The younger kids will be, I'll be changing up the project. So don't just assume. When we do our training, I'll take you through what we're going to do for the younger ones. But again, notice that I'm not trying to blend here. I'm just leaving it as is. The underside of the skin needs to be a little darker. And this side can just take a tiny bit of graphite just to kind of lighten the hue. You don't want it too bright. So this becomes your stuff. Now, what do you do for the other part? This project is still not finished. What do I mean by that? I want you to, in the 4 boxes you made, you're going to put in a pattern. Leave 2 boxes intentionally empty. And on the other 2, you can create a pattern. So what do I mean by that? Get your kids to take a round trip brush, and it's sort of like putting in a wallpaper or something. So for example, on this one, I'm going to put in one, 2, 3, a little bit of a print there. Here. We're trying to change up the style of doing a still life is all it is. So something like this. So this would be the wallpaper behind your piece over there, and on the other side I can put in on that, so that you can put in now. Looking at this, you definitely want to think about using a charcoal pencil on this. You can opt to completing your painting first and then going into doing the charcoal part, but you should paint down the background first and not wait till later on. Because if you don't paint that background down, it won't dry in time and you'll have another issue to conform to. Oh, another thing that I must have forgotten, and my oversight, I apologize. There's a little bit of a background color that should have come in here. Right there. So that's what you have. And that is your drawing fundamental level 2 still life. Pick a fruit. Advanced art will be starting their canvas this week, and it is an abstract art. We use birds as our subject. So watch this video. So this project is for your advanced art, and in the advanced art, to do abstract art, we are going to only use birds. For the advanced art students, we are going to work with the macaws. So the way that you would do this project is it's a 2-class long project. You're going to use 2 classes to do a really good canvas. This is a canvas painting, so students can get enough time to work on it. These are my birds, but all I use of the birds is about this much. That's my drawing. I'm not using the entire bird thing. The reason I won't use all of them is I need room on the canvas to work on and create different sections so that I can create an interesting kind of rendering. So now, having said that, let's start with this project, whereby I'm going to draw for you first and then move into the next thing. So remember one thing, we want to position this bird that's not gnawing away at the tree branch right here. So the way that I see this bird is I'm going to make its shoulder first, not the head. And I'm going to give it second shoulder, then body. So it's like a heart shape. Use the corner of this and take the dip, create the neck. So this part conforms to the neck. A little bit of the head bump going up and across. Now from here you have the beak for the bird. You have also then the area that divides the plumage from the eye. That's the eye area, this is the plumage. So this completes your first bird. Your second bird accordingly would be about here. So I would take as much as I can put in off it. So here we go. And again, this will vary when you are in the class and you're working with your students. You're going to find that maybe as you draw, you take in more of the birds. That is perfectly okay. You just have to make sure that they give enough room on that canvas. These are the canvases. Do not pick a small size canvas. I believe the size that we have for you is maybe the 11 by 14. So you want to use those ones. Now, across from the tip of the beak here, this is where the foot starts. So I'm going to put in a curved line that angles and goes towards the body of the bird. And this one, so you have this. So you have one foot, and then you would make in the second foot also. But I'm going to keep it to this much just for the sake of this video to show you the base drawing. For the tree that the bird is kind of stuck onto, start from the tip of the beak, take it all the way up. Imagine if it goes through the bird's body, it comes down here, so you don't have to draw any more apart from that line here. And maybe you want to expand the wing, not keep it so close. Next, if you look at the picture of this, the palm tree, it's got these horizontal lines that are crisscrossing. So I use that in my picture. Just as a crisscross. Now, what you don't want to do is start drawing a whole bunch of feathers. This is an abstract project. What that means is you would take your lines now and you would extend them across. 1, don't use every single line of your tree. 2, take the tip of the beak and let it come diagonally across. Take the line here, extend. So you're using the tips of your lines to kind of create more like divides and make it look so you're breaking the space and you are so this is how you don't make the feathers. You just make the body outlines, and now each space is ready. At this point, I'm going to put a, what you'll have to do next is you're going to get small bottles of Elmer glue that we've mixed black color in. In the first class, the drawing has to complete. Then the students take that bottle of glue, starting from the top, you're going to trace your outlines. Why? Because it gives you not just a black barrier, but it's a slightly three-dimensional black barrier. It looks good. At the end, the product is a good product, but at the same time, it makes sure that the students have restricted areas to work in. Now, I'm going to put this picture out and we're going to work on the painting process of it. I am again going to tell you that I'm going to be using my primary colors. So hold on a minute there. And for this one, you're going to work with acrylic paints, not tempera. But every part that you do needs to have basic color. So you're going to create colors through your primary colors. Okay. White and black would be the next two. So here we go. When you start with a yellow first, for example, in your mixing palette, you would only take your yellow and you would take some white. And the best way to do this project is what I like to call the dot technique. So I'm going to expand just a little bit more because I want you guys to see the area that I plan to paint into right there. So let's work this thing. So I want you to tell your students to start with the very first primary color. Do not pour out all the colors because this will take time. So you're going to take, for example, let's start from the palm tree here. So I'm going to put my white dot of paint right there first. I want every section to become like a gradient. And clean the brush off. Remember, kitchen towel. Take your yellow, start from the other side. And as you come in, it will start to mix in with the white to make it go from a dark to a light. Clean off the brush with not the water, but just your paper towel and help the paints to assimilate with each other. They're going to mix really nicely and that's one area done. Pick a second area. So only do the yellows and have them move around versus have them pop colors wherever they feel like it. That would be a bit disastrous in my opinion. So here we go. I'm going to apply my yellow paint and starting from the top, they can pick as many areas as they want to. Let's say that they have a fetish for doing the warm colors and they don't want to go into cool colors. That's fine. You can definitely work this project in that respect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this coloring portion on a time lapse so you don't have to watch for a very long period of time. But I do want you to see as to how many places I'd like to put in as being a blend. The smaller areas that I get in between, and if it's hard for me to create like gradients there, what I would probably like to do is to put a solid yellow color there. And that is the abstract art thing. So every section, if it's too tiny, they need to put in a block color. That means it cannot be patchy. The way to override a patchy effect is add a little bit of white to it, and it will really, really fix it. And but if it's a larger area, they need to create a gradient. That's for sure. So like over here, I see some messiness. I'm going to fix it right now. There we go. Check the work for your students. Make sure that it is really strong. This can be one of their portfolio pieces if they really put the right amount of effort into it and everything. So think about that and encourage them to work really hard on this. Okay.